U.S. and Asia by Max Lichtenfeld. Vietnam War. The French. So, Vietnam used to be called Indochina, and it was under the French control. Indochina wanted their freedom like most countries, and so they declared war in 1946, but the exact time wasn't exactly sure because it was very confusing over there. War raged on between the Indochina's Viet Minh, their army, and the French. The war lasted until 1956, when Indochina got its independence and a new name, Vietnam. U.S. gets involved. When Vietnam got its independence, they fully became a communist state. But the southern half did not want to be communist. The U.S. was helping French in the original war because they wanted to prevent the spread of communism, and this was called the domino theory, but that will come later. So the U.S. helped South Vietnam stop the northern communist side. State of Vietnam, the war. Ho Chi Minh created a guerrilla army to stop the South. A guerrilla army is an army that doesn't fight like a normal army. They'll jump out of trees, hide in bushes, and just slit your throats and just do crazy things. So the South tried to make a similar type of guerrilla army, but theirs wasn't as insane. The war went on for many more years, up until 1961. The Northern Viet Cong seemed to be winning the fight. Then the South got reinforced with more American troops and weapons, more controlled fighting, and a will to fight. President Nixon was elected in 1968 and promised to end the war, but couldn't in his first term, and was re-elected in 1962. The war went on, and the South and the Americans gained ground. It took years, but in 1973 there was a ceasefire agreement in Paris. All Americans left later in that year, right after the North Vietnam took over the South and is still today fully communist. The Korean War. Beginning. On June 25, 1950, 75,000 troops from the northern communist half of Korea attacked the South, more of a democratic republic government. From the line known as the 38th parallel, the non-specific border between the North Communist Korea and the South non-communist Korea. This was the official start of the war. The U.S. joined in the fight in July of that year. Their greatest fear was that this would turn into a World War III battle between China, the Soviet Union, and them. America and South Korean troops were making good progress till China joined the fight, but not 100%. Eventually, Chinese troops had to retreat from Korea because they didn't want to be involved in the war any longer. Two Koreas. The end. U.S. and South Korea established their ground and negotiated for a truce were happening, but it took another 2 years to establish something, and during that period, fighting continued. At the end, over 1 million troops and civilians were killed from both sides. The war officially ended July 27, 1953, with the signing of the Korean Armistice Agreement. The Korean Armistice Agreement stated that North and South Korea would not fight anymore and established a border between the two Koreas. Tension is still high in Korea, especially at the border. The domino theory. The domino theory is the idea or theory that as countries in Asia become communist, so will their neighbors, and their neighbors will kind of influence their decisions on what kind of government to choose, and eventually all of Asia would be a communist state. The containment. The U.S. believes that communism is not the right way to go, and so we try to contain it to very few countries that are communist today. This goes with the domino theory, because the more countries we prevent from becoming communist, the less countries will be knocked over, as in like the dominoes. So this is just a table that you can look at and copy down for some extra notes. So I'll give you some time to look at this.